What's strange in comics is when this doesn't end up being an issue. Comic books have within them superheroes who are flawless, undefeatable, and noble, which is cool and all, but doesn't really make a ton of sense, and it isn't super relatable. After all, to be human is to err. Ergo, why as time has gone on, it has become more popular to have flawed superheroes. Some of these flaws end up being a lack of control or experience, something we can all relate to. Think about it, we've all run into situations where we've struggled with our inner experience or felt like we had no control. It can be terrifying. And to read about other superheroes who struggle with these issues can help us to put our problems into perspective, help us to feel humbled. Today we'll all be looking at some of these heroes who struggle as we count down the top 10 superheroes who don't know how to use their powers properly. If you also fear a complete lack of control and empathize with these heroes like me, be sure to give this list a thumbs up. And be sure to stick around till the end of the list where I will have some bonus content coming your way. Alright, let's get counting. Number 10. Miles Morales. While Miles may have grown into his powers in the comics, even going on to become some people's preferred Spider-Man, even when compared to Peter Parker over at 616, in the film Into the Spider-Verse we get introduced to a less adept version of the hero. In Into the Spider-Verse, Miles gets superpowers after being bitten by a radioactive spider, as the usual story goes, but he has a lot of trouble controlling these abilities. Comically, maybe even more trouble than Peter Parker himself even did. Though I'm sure anyone would struggle to get the hang of spider-like abilities right off the bat. Well, maybe except for Spider-Man Noir. He seems like a guy who would just instantly nail it. Miles struggles with his spider stickiness, finding it hard to control his sticking and unsticking to surfaces. Though thankfully, he has his own version of Peter Parker there to help him out with that. But Miles can also become completely invisible in the film, a power that Peter Parker has no idea how to help him with, as he has never possessed it himself, and leaving Miles to go visible when he'd rather go invisible and go invisible when he'd rather be visible. Yikes. Number 9. Rogue. Rogue can use her abilities to adopt the powers of anyone she touches. More than borrowing them, she is in a sense stealing them as well as draining their life energy and sometimes even their memories. We see this go awry when a young Rogue attacks Captain Marvel and ends up leaving her without memories and in a comatose state. She also did this to her first kiss, Cody, and she also did this to Gambit at one point. Her lack of control over her powers ends up haunting Rogue for most of her life, and although she has sometimes gained enough control in the comics to touch others without harming them, like when Professor X helped her to achieve this and she actually kissed Gambit for the first time, without hurting him, she spends most of her time in comics unable to touch those that she loves without causing harm to them. In fact, recently in the Mr. and Mrs. X series, we learned that this side effect of her powers is specifically connected to her emotions. The more she loves someone, the more afraid she gets of harming them, and the more likely it becomes that she will harm them upon making physical contact with said loved one. It's like this vicious circle. Just gotta face those fears. Number 8. Jubilee. Okay, all the Jubilee fans might be upset that I'm mentioning Jubilee on this list, but I promise it is a compliment that she is on here. Many people when they think of Jubilee think of quick party tricks. They think of her accidentally blowing up an arcade game with her little firework powers in the 90s X-Men cartoon. Although Jubilee wasn't shown to be as powerful as we'd like in that cartoon, she was still awesome and adorable. One of my first crushes actually. But while people may dismiss Jubilee because of how she was depicted in the animated series as well as earlier on in the comics, the truth is she does deserve our respect. She is very powerful, she just doesn't have great control of her powers yet. In Uncanny X-Men Volume 1, when her good friend and mentor Wolverine was in danger, she actually showed us some of her true potential when in an emotional frenzy she ended up destroying a part of Mandarin's castle. While she hasn't always had the best control of her powers, there is no denying that Jubilee with full control would be pretty unstoppable. We're talking subatomic level explosions, people. So it's probably best if she always kinda has some work to do there, cause she'd just be too OP, she'd be blowing up everything. Number 7. Jessica Cruz. While Jessica has grown in her abilities when it comes to her powers as Green Lantern, this wasn't always the case. Jessica spent a good part of her time as a superhero in disbelief and struggling to use her ring to even fully form constructs at all. The reason why she struggled so much is due to her anxiety, which she was riddled with after many of her loved ones were killed by the crime syndicate, and she went into hiding. Add to that the fact that she has never even wanted to really be a superhero or have powers, but was kind of forced into it, and it's understandable why it's been so hard for her to become the hero that her Green Lantern ring always knew her to be. Number 6. Citizen Steel. Nate Hayward gained his powers after striking the metallic villain Reichsmark with one of his crutches. He had recently had his leg amputated after a tragic football accident and used his crutches to defend himself during a fight with the villain, after most of his family were killed in the brutal attack. Nate ends up stabbing him in the mouth with his crutch, and Reichsmark spits up metallic blood on him, which ends up putting Nate in a coma, and when he awakes, giving him superpowers. He finds his leg has regrown but is now made of steel. In fact, his whole body is now living steel. He can no longer feel physical pain or any sensation via touch, unfortunately. This makes it hard for him to gauge how much power he is using. He is so strong and dangerous that he is actually forced to wear a containment suit to keep his power levels in check. We still don't even know how powerful he is. We can't expect that he is one of the physically strongest heroes though in DC, as when he removed the top half of his suit during the Kingdom Come story arc, he successfully took down the powerful villain Gog, a villain that not even Superman of Earth 22 could defeat. So if Superman can't take him down, it's pretty impressive. Number 5. Luthor Schroeder. Luthor Schroeder is the main character of Image Comics' The Strange Talent of Luthor Schroeder. He gains his powers after being gifted enough to unlock his potential using the Hercules method. He is then granted impossibly quick reflexes, super speed, and super strength. The issue is that Luthor is new to these powers and finds it hard to control them. Everyone he goes up against, he pretty much ends up brutally killing. At school, when his powers kick in, he accidentally breaks his bully's nose during a game of dodgeball. Near the end of the story, he accidentally ends up killing someone he loves and was only seeking to protect. While his powers appear to be a blessing at first, it is later revealed that they are more of a curse, as Luthor appears to cause harm to come to those who he most desires to protect. Number 4. Jean Grey. Jean actually needed help with her abilities from a young age. Her issue is that she is so powerful that she could easily lose control of her powers and be a danger to others. Fortunately, she had mental blocks put in place by Charles Xavier to help her not lose control by not having access to the full strength of her powers. Unfortunately, she then later would come into contact with the Phoenix Force, who would merge with Jean in order to save her while on a mission in space with her fellow X-Men. This would at first be a good thing, resulting in Jean becoming the Phoenix, a mighty and omnipotent superhero. But later, the power that the Phoenix Force unlocked within Jean would turn her dark, and she would become the villain Dark Phoenix, proving that too much power can easily corrupt even those with the best of intentions. Even a goody-goody like Jean can become a baddie-baddie. Number 3. Sentry. While Robert Reynolds may seem adept at using his superpowers as the Sentry, his mental state is what often leads him astray in terms of properly controlling these powers. Known as the most powerful superhero that the world forgot, his being erased from the minds of those he knew has been a part of his story on, well, more than one occasion. One time it was even insinuated that he was so powerful that he even subconsciously caused others to forget him without really knowing it himself. There's also the huge issue of Robert's evil alter ego, the Void. The reason why so many people had to apparently forget him in the first place. Without the Void, Sentry cannot exist. They are two sides of the same coin. This is all because Robert struggled to accept the darkness within himself, and without internal and mental healing, this will and has continued to be a problem for Robert, as his dark side manifests in the worst way through the Void, something that he has seemingly no control over. Number 2. Chamber. Not only does Jonathan Starsmore have the ability to emit psionic energy from his chest, but he has so little control over this power when it manifests that it actually causes him more harm than it does help him. He ends up blowing off his jaw and much of his chest cavity, meaning he can now only talk via telepathy. He ended up at Charles Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters, working alongside a team of junior mutants in the Generation X series. But to add insult to injury, there was another young superhero at the school called Sync, or Everett Ev Thomas, who could adopt the powers of those near him. And Ev was actually even better at using Jono's abilities than he was, showing more discipline and controlling them. Ugh. Embarrassing. Number 1. Deku. Deku received the One for All quirk from All Might, one of the strongest superheroes around. This quirk is one of the most powerful in the world of My Hero Academia, and has the unique ability of being able to be passed on to another. However, it is also a difficult quirk to master because it is so powerful. Deku himself struggles to use it as the power is so strong that it causes his bones to break and his body to be hurt as a result of channeling all that energy. He almost doesn't even make it into the Hero Academy, UA High School. However, he discovers that when channeling and focusing the power through a single part of his being, he only risks damaging that part, and so he channels the power through his fingers, allowing him to only do damage to a single finger for each use. Just flicking stuff. And throwing balls with one finger. Boop. Thank you so much for watching, Nerd Squad. Who are some of your favorite out-of-control superheroes? Who do you think could be insanely powerful with just a bit more experience? Can you relate to heroes who have felt inexperienced and out of control, yes or no? Let us know in the comments below. And speaking of comments, it's time to turn to some comments from one of our latest videos. Top 10 superheroes you didn't know were mutants. Amy Isaac says, Mayday Parker is the best Spider-Girl. I feel like there are some Spider-Gwen fans who might disagree with you, but I really do love Mayday. The great thing about the Spider Spider-Verse 2 is that we get to have all of the Spider-Girls. I mean, why have one when you can have an undetermined, possibly limitless number of them? Ty the Detailer comments, I hope Valeria has a different father just so that things are weird for you. Damn, everything is weird for top 10. Well, we talk about a lot of comics, and let's be honest, there's a lot of weird things that happen in comics, but oh my goodness, if Valeria's dad isn't Reed Richards, I'm just definitely gonna flip out. Who do you think that they would make her dad if it wasn't Reed in a twist though? Dr. Doom? Namor? I feel like Sue is pretty loyal to Reed Richards, I don't really understand why, so I don't really know how that would work, but I imagine that I wouldn't like it. And that's all the time we have for comments today. Be sure to comment below for a chance to have your thoughts and feels featured in a future video, and hear me respond to them. This has been Top 10 Nerd, and I'm your host Amanda McKnight. You stay nerdy, YouTube.